Okay, all right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee for April 28th. We are still meeting via Zoom, although with the weather getting better, one of these days, I think we'll actually get outdoors and meet. But for today, we'll continue on this path. We have present Diana Fetterman, who's a member of our committee, and then various guests. Sarah Simmons representing the Housing Authority, Cindy Palmer representing Planning Board, and Randall Kemp, our Highway Superintendent. Expecting Kate Swistak-Rooks, another member of the committee, hopefully. But we'll get going no matter what. I think, so with you all on, there's two agenda items that kind of pertain to you. And I guess, Randall, what is your time frame? Do you, would you like to just jump in first and then you can be off doing your thing?
Well, I'm at your disposal.
Yeah, okay, well,
I already blocked this off. I think I was under the impression that you wanted me here from the last meeting. So
okay. Well, good. Well, in between time, we actually did submit that one-stop thing. So why don't I bring that up and we'll start with that. But then I would like to talk about the new idea of the Shared Streets, Shared Spaces grant opportunity. So let me just see if I can pull up anything that looks like the right document that I want, of course. Right, that would be the wrong one. Oh, goodness gracious, where'd it go? Where's the one stop? Hold on a minute. Okay, hopefully this is it. So, let's see if I can scroll down here. Come on. So they were true to their word once we got it submitted before April 1st. Let's see if I can just make this a little bit smaller here. How's that? They did get us some feedback, which was good at least. I just went down too far. I just hate this thing here. So they have all reviewed it, sitting down there in Boston land. And then this is the feedback they've given us. So just very briefly, the economic growth goals, I think they were very impressed with our background information. So that's great. So thank you, especially to Diana, who took the lead on that. I think this was great. So there were things there that they thought our goals were pretty well stated and that they should be in the full application should we decide to put in a full application. Here comes Ian. Hold on a second. I think we've got more people here. Just a
minute. Sorry for being late. I thought we were meeting tomorrow.
That's okay.
We could do that too.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Kate, for joining in. And then Ian Illingsworth also here. So great. Thanks. We're just getting started, guys. And this is just basically to go over the feedback to start off with on this, the one-stop expression of interest application that we put in. So basically, they did like our background section here in our goals and objectives. It was interesting here, you know, sort of, you know, very positive, I kind of thought here. Basically, also, though, some of the information, if we do go to the real application, some of the basic information actually preloads itself into the application, which is kind of nice. So some of those things that we have in section 2 will show up there already. But it was interesting that these ideas may evolve into interesting projects. So it's like, okay, what do you mean by that? Could you give us more of a clue? But anyway, so we got basically a pat on the back for what we were trying to do. But then they went down and tried to suggest which of the grants were more appropriate. We had selected probably 2 or 3 categories almost for every grant, or for every concept rather, in terms of the kind of grant that it would apply to. And this is the one that they tended to look at probably the more favorably. So the underutilized properties for affordable housing. And this one was, they confirmed that it's eligible and would fit into the pre-development and permitting category, but it wouldn't fit any of the other categories that we had checked off. And part of that was because we just weren't totally sure about all those categories and how they were applied. But this would be the idea of looking at unutilized town properties that might be possible sites for some affordable housing initiative, and whether they're wetland or not, as you had talked about, I think, Sierra, on that Middle Road property, that's fine. I mean, I think the whole idea is to have some properties in mind and have them scouted out and do some site testing and figure out whether anything's appropriate or not. So this seemed to be where they were landing too, with a sort of pre-development category. And then it was review the guidelines again for the underutilized properties program. So that's the challenge here. I guess this we may have overlooked before. I don't know. The applicant is required to already have ownership of the building it wants to improve. We weren't talking in this case about any building. So I think we have to go back and look at that underutilized properties program again in more detail, because
I think they might be explaining to us, I think that might have been a different category than the permitting, and they're explaining to us why we don't fit in that category, but we do fit in the
okay.
pre-permitting. That's
There
what
you
I
go.
think and hope, and not that they're saying also as
okay.
part of this, you need to review that. But,
That could be very well true. That could be very true. Because we probably did put that one in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you could be right on that. And then recommending that we explore the Citizens Housing and Planning Association and Mass Housing. And I think you guys at Housing Authority, you've already worked some with Mass Housing, have you not?
Yeah, and I just looked up the Citizens Housing and Planning Association. It looks like they have a good sort of database of consultants we could use to find people. Other than that, it seems mostly to be resources for like individuals looking to buy stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know whether, have you all had a chance to have a meeting yet on this? I know you had the housing and planning joint meeting, right? But you may not have gotten into this topic. I don't know.
No, we didn't get too deep into it. We have our next meeting on Monday. We did, we did sort of talk about, because we were having our meeting with the DLTA people, and so we did talk about how it might coincide with some of this. And yeah, they basically said, yeah, those grants could happen concurrently. One may inform the other may inform one, etc.
Yeah. Okay. So probably it would be that you'd have to do a little bit more digging into this whole pre-development and permitting category to understand, what kinds of information are actually necessary to actually fill out the real application. But I think at this point, that would be great if you guys want to continue this. I think both at the Housing Authority joint meeting with planning, or Housing Authority by itself, and then let us know if you want to move forward, if we could be of any help from the grant committee to try and help fill in some blanks here. I've got the sort of the online access at the moment, so I could, certainly enter in an application if that's what we wanted to do whenever you're ready to do that. And I think the applications are open during the month of May pretty soon, and they're due in by sometime in June.
Okay.
So it's probably about a month's time. I'd have to go back and look at the dates again, but I'm thinking there's about a month's time to actually put in an application, should the Housing Authority want to do that.
Would it be possible to get a copy of the questions we're going to be asked in the full application?
I can look online and see if I can find that. Yeah, I think there was a place where they allowed you to get in and see that. So let me dig that out, and I will forward that to you. You said you're meeting again on Monday, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it might be good to have that.
Yeah,
so I'll get to it to them. We can talk about it.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll get you something before Monday. That's fine. Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. All right here. Thank you. All right. So the next one, the second one, public safety complex site feasibility. So unfortunately, this project is not eligible for any of the funding sources currently available in One Stop. So that's really quite disappointing, given that the one stop comprises like 10 different agencies. That something like the public safety complex doesn't meet anybody's criteria. But then they went on to say that it's designated as a small town or rural community, so it's eligible to submit it in the special project category in the full application. So then we've got to go back and look again at the Rural and Small Town Development Fund for details about how this would be evaluated. And Ian, I think I did send this to you, right? This feedback to you before when it came out. You didn't see it. You're muted. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I did not see it. This is the first I'm seeing it.
Oh, okay. I thought I sent it to you and John too, but I'll pass it back if I didn't. Because this would be something too where we'd have to dig in a little bit more. If we thought we wanted to continue here, we'd have to dig in a little bit more on this highlighted section here and understand what that's all about. Did you and John ever touch base with Keystone, or is that something you don't think is worthwhile doing?
I'm waiting back on a response. The last I did, I spoke with somebody directly at Keystone, Marmon Keystone in Southampton, but that is that's a corporation that has it's nationally wide corporation, so they have to go through their people that they report to.
Yeah.
So
okay.
as a result, it'll be a while. When I inquired, she did speak with some people in corporate, but they said they wanted an analysis from Marmon Keystone as to whether or not that land may be needed for them and for future development for themselves. So that's what I'm waiting on.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. At least we've had a conversation. That's important anyway, to know that much. Okay. All right. So that's about all they had to say there. And then on the one from the planning board aspect here, Cindy, on the mixed use commercial residential, unfortunately also not eligible for any of the funding sources currently available in one stop, and then suggested going to PVPC for DLTA funding. Surprise, surprise.
So as we talked the other night in the Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting, there are a lot of plans to work on bylaw restructure, writing new bylaws, et cetera, that fall to the planning board.
Right.
I'm going to be sharing this information about what the one-stop response was, as well as all the other things that came out in the update of the master plan with the planning board. And ideally, we will get some funding if it's DLTA or something, because the volunteer planning board won't have all the time to do this. We know that.
Certainly.
And it's really necessary. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good. So basically, not a whole lot of information here, but I think it's, it definitely looks like the housing one is one that we should pursue a little bit more. Even, as you read through this again, even the one about the public safety complex, I think if we go back and look at those guidelines in there again, there may be some hope there to look at that one too. So what I will do is go in and try to find the real questions that are part of the application and see what we can look at. I'll do that before we meet next time. So basically they do acknowledge that we have the small town criteria met, but that we may not have something that clearly fits into this whole continuum. So then we could look at something for a special consideration type project. But that's basically all they have to say. They have not given us any other agency information to my knowledge. They have not referred us, or at least they haven't told us that they have. So I've gotten no names to follow up on for that. And so this is just to help us decide if we're going to submit a full application or not, and how to strengthen its submission.
frankly, there's not a whole lot of advice to strengthen our submission here, but I guess they're leaving it to us to do more research and read between the lines here. So any particular thoughts on this? Shall we just go back in and spend some time, not today, but before we meet again, go back in on these suggested links and double check what kinds of things might fit us best and if that is worth putting in a full application? What's anybody's first thoughts on things? Is this a possible to keep on pursuing a little bit longer, or do you see it as a dead end? Anybody? Who's got the energy levels?
Are you talking about just the last section, or are you talking about the application in general?
Well, in general, I mean, we could, we put in the three concepts, and there's sounds like there's one relatively good possibility to put in an application on the housing side. And a question,
definitely seems like they're interested in our ideas about housing.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that's what they're, from the feedback they gave us.
right. And then, maybe a question mark on the public safety one, and probably a no on the planning side. That's the way I'm reading that. So I think by, going back in and taking a look at some of these things that they've highlighted here. So reviewing the guidelines again for the Rural and Small Town Development Fund, for example, under the Public Safety Complex one. And then I think it was just back up here, the permitting and pre-development category. So how about if we, look at these before our next meeting, and then I will also just try to get a hold of what the real application in both of these cases look like, so that when we meet again, we've got a better sense of what's ahead of us. And I'm thinking we're probably going to meet pretty soon, probably even next week, honestly, because time is going to fly by if this is really due by the beginning of June. Okay, so that,
could you scroll up a little bit so
Yeah.
I can see page one a little bit more?
which go to the top part.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So this just said, yeah, there we go. Okay. So it summarized the team's view of everything that we put in.
I mean, they didn't say opportunity, they said opportunities. And, I feel like kind of both things go hand in hand. Like the importance of the safety complex is to support growth within the town. And so I feel like any effort we can exert towards moving that in any direction would be a good thing. It seems like they're very interested in the housing, but it doesn't seem like we couldn't, like it would be a bad idea to try to explore both ideas.
Okay.
I just don't know if what we would get less funding if we applied for two ideas instead of one. Like we could probably get, because they're different projects, right? We could be eligible for the, more funding if we applied for both.
Right.
Like it would be 50-50. It's not like if we apply for two ideas that we're only going to get half the funding.
Yeah.
No, you're right on that. I think the way this is laid out here, it shows that these two ideas are definitely in different categories. So I don't think they're competing with each other in this case. And I don't recall anything saying that we couldn't put in a full application, more than one full application. I'll go back and double check that too, but I don't think there was a restriction on that. So I think the key is to go back in and just look at these suggested areas that they're talking about and be sure that we really understand that we're still eligible. If there's something in there that is clear that, whoops, that knocks us out of the ballpark, then it's not worth our time to actually put in a full application. But I'm thinking we should have one, maybe even two, but one anyway. Okay.
Yeah, I'll spend some time studying all that stuff for the housing one this weekend.
Great.
And then
No,
I'll bring it to the
that's
housing committee on Monday and hopefully have an answer for you guys
great.
thereafter.
Okay, no, that's great.
Relative to the economic growth section,
Yeah.
you know, I can't help but think about that industrial property, you know, on the south end of town on Route 10 that is dormant because there's no sewer systems there.
Right.
And the connection with Westfield,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it just stands out as economic growth to me, especially, you know, considering our state of
Right.
where we're in and where we're heading in town.
Yep. No, good point. Hey, Randall, at one point, I think you had talked about maybe reaching out to the DPW folks in Westfield. Did you have a chance to ever do that?
I did, and I got no reply. I know they're kind of in transition over there. Fran Kane is working on retiring or got moved up to interim DPW director, and I've had some interaction with him, but he never got back to me. So I'm not sure what's going on over there.
Yeah. Would you be able to is it something you could pick up the phone and talk to somebody or talk to him or somebody else? Or
I could try. I tried getting through their phone tree last time because that's what I was going to originally do. But
yeah,
I'm easily frustrated by those pressing buttons when I want to speak to a human.
Right. Gotcha.
But I give it another go.
Yeah, if you could, that would be good because, you know, if we do decide to, you know, put this in, then we could maybe talk about that again.
Can I throw something out related to this?
Sure. Go ahead.
At one of the planning board meetings, Paul Fergal, Randall, you know Paul Fergal, don't you?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So he, because of his professional business, he was able to speak about some of the issues related to connecting with Westfield. And I wonder if you could talk with him, because I'm not good at, you know, really telling you exactly what he was explaining. That's just not something I'm good at explaining. And why that might or might not be feasible to tie into Westfield. And he had to do the relationship with what happened when they built the Cumberland Farms right there on the Westfield line, you know, right there at the corner. I talked to Paul and see what his thoughts are, because he seemed to have a good deal of insight on what would work or not work. And I think that would, you know, help us to understand it. I'd say I'd call him myself, but once again, it's just not language I speak, you know, so. So if you would consider doing that, we might get some insight from him on that and where to go. Because I think he also has connections with Westfield periodically, you know, professional connections with the DPW.
Sure. Okay, that might be an idea. Okay, good. So that's at least something for all of our work on that. That was at least the feedback as promised and relatively timely. It only took about 2 weeks, which is pretty good, I thought. So what I would like to jump to, and those that can't stay, I understand, that's fine. But I
have to leave, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
This new grant opportunity appeared across my desk just yesterday. And it's called the Shared Streets and Spaces Grant Opportunity, which, will it let me do this now? Oh, I forgot. Hold on. I got to stop sharing that one first. Let me do this. I always try to share 2 things and that never works. I know that. Okay. Now it's still not doing it. Come on now. There we go. Can you all see that, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this is something through DOT. And I guess this is a new round of grant applications. It sounds like it's only a couple years old in terms of this program. And I guess a fair amount of it took off during the winter time when they were trying to make some special programs available for dealing with businesses in the pandemic. So they did a lot of work with, sorry a minute, they did a lot of work with restaurants and outdoor seating and that kinds of things to keep businesses going during the health crisis, basically. But basically, this supports this kind of thing that I've highlighted in yellow here. So I guess we don't have to worry about bus stops so much, and maybe not too much about, well, we have some parking areas certainly, but basically, to try and improve sidewalks, curbs, streets, bike lanes, whatever there may be. We are not an environmental justice community. I don't think we're a high-risk community.
Well, we can work on that.
What, the high-risk community? No, Kate doesn't want to hear that. No, not nice. So anyway, proposed projects are 50,000 or less. There's a special bonus point if you can do something and get it done by September 7th, which I can't quite imagine. But they're looking for projects that are proximate to schools, senior centers, transit connections, and open space and parks. So immediately my head goes right down to the center of town and in and around East Street, Conan Park, Town Hall, etc. And so the smallest grant apparently has been around 5,000. It can go higher than that, especially for bigger towns that are dealing with bus service and those kinds of things, I would assume. So timing is a little bit interesting because applications are due on May 21st. The award is notified already by the end of June. Those that are able to be done by September will be prioritized, but no matter what, something's got to be done by the end of December. So really this gives a 6-month timeline to put whatever the project is done kind of thing. I did at the bottom here, there's a lot of things that talk about, bike lanes and things there. I did pull out from the website just some examples, and I'll just see if I can bring this up. These are examples of some of the things that did happen, awards that have been given. So at the very bottom, for example, Holyoke has got their bike share stations. So someday when we have our bike trail, that could be an interesting idea. But a lot of these were, expanding or repairing sidewalks that are in bad condition, putting on new lighting in certain public places, doing, Easthampton, you see this one, I didn't realize this was through this grant, but they had taken one of their parking lots and made it an outdoor performance venue for their city arts folks. So they've had festivals or music events and so forth there apparently. This one here in Alford, they had an off-road small walking trail, 500 feet walking trail to connect whatever the trail and a historic property. So there's, not super complicated type projects, but it just seemed like it could be potentially interesting. I think this is the one though that if you saw in the news probably, well, it must have been probably 3-4 months ago now, Northampton had tried to do something where they were trying to expand the parking in downtown Northampton in front of Thorns Market, etc., and have a lot of outdoor dining during the fall, winter. And they basically changed all the street direction. They made all this outside seating out beyond the sidewalk area. And for whatever reason, it didn't sound like there had been a whole lot of consultation with the businesses along Main Street. And there was a huge hubbub about it in the news. And I believe they were forced to retract the whole thing. And, they just didn't do a great job of planning it, apparently, and getting everybody's buy-in. So there can be a few glitches here, but anyway, just wondering if there's anything here that comes to anybody's mind that could be of interest to us.
Chris, Randall and I had explored this grant. We were notified of it as well.
Uh-huh.
And what came to our mind when we saw it was trying to address the pickup line at Norris School.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
In particular, we thought about, and maybe the timeline's too short to do this, but we were thinking, is it a possibility with public buy-in that we could turn Gun Road Extension into a one-way?
Uh-huh.
What I mean by that is you can't exit onto Route 10.
Right.
In particular, I don't like that intersection. I've seen some very bad accidents there.
Yep.
It's a curve. It's not a good intersection to be exiting anyway.
I agree with that totally. Yep.
And if we made it a one-way, we could have a section of it a bike path walkway. Randall had a specific term of a joint use. I don't remember exactly what he said. And then on the school side, we could have parking and the the pickup line, if you will, on that side of Gun Road. So the pickup line wouldn't be on Pomeroy Meadow Road. I don't know if you've seen now Pomeroy Meadow Road, especially now that with the pandemic, cars are
Yep.
backed up all the way to Route 10 now. And
Yeah.
creating somewhat of a problem. And, you know, I suppose if we wanted to force our hand on it, we could prevent people from parking there, but
Yeah. No, I think even on a good day before the pandemic, I mean, cars were often parked up
the
as
post
far,
office at least. It was to
yeah,
the
at least by the post office, exactly. So that's an interesting idea.
I just
Very-
don't know as far as traffic studies and public hearings about having a one-way there, how that would affect, how that would meet the timeline.
Yeah.
Well, what about even getting started on it? If we fill out the application to perform the traffic study, at least we'd have some, you know, initial data to start moving in a direction here. And by that time, we might hear feedback from the public that make it a non-starter anyway. But I don't know. I think it's a great idea. Ian's being kind. It was his idea, but we've talked about it, and I think it's a great idea.
No, I do too. I really hate that coming out of Gun Road Extension to cross over onto Gun Road here. I mean, it's just, you know, you have to really double check 2 or 3 times to be sure nobody's coming down that hill fast, because they appear around that corner very quickly.
And we get a
Now-
lot of speeding complaints on Gun Road Extension. In fact, we actually had our own, you know, traffic study there not too long ago, last summer. I believe
Right.
it was.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So we could, you know, have some other signage posted there.
Yeah. So
And,
with that traffic study already having been done last summer, even though it was for a different reason, kind of, do you think that would be sufficient, or do you think we'd have to have DOT do some other kind of study?
That's more in Randall's wheelhouse, but I believe it would be DOT because that was just excuse me, that was just a traffic study through our speed signs that records data, speeding data.
Right. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
But Randall would be able to speak more.
Yeah. Well, great idea on that. Yeah. Go ahead, Randall. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's DOT we'd reach out to, or we would hire a traffic engineer to analyze that situation. But if this is something we want to pursue, I have a couple of contacts who I could reach out to, maybe bat around flesh out the idea maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and just think about what it would take and how long it might take to do, and you know what kind of a cost that study would be itself, I suppose. But those are the kinds of things that somehow you can, depending on how the grant is structured, you can build those kinds of costs into the grant in some ways.
Right.
If
You
you-
can, and it seems like there a lot of infrastructure programs like this are popping up where they're looking for shovel-ready projects. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think to have done some of the background and get a plan ready to go is not a bad thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting idea. And honestly, you know, when you think about it, I mean, there's, you know, okay, so you're making maybe a separate bike lane. So, okay, you're making, you know, maybe a strip of green pavement, or you're putting down a white line for a bike lane or something. But I
think
mean, there's not really super duper construction to be done.
No,
I mean,
it's
this
a matter
is,
of signage and
Right.
painted lines.
yeah, pavement marking, signage, and you know, when you change the traffic pattern, there's going to have to be advanced, you know, warnings out on Route 10.
right.
We're going to have massive public awareness campaigns.
Yeah.
That's changing. It's
Sure.
not insurmountable.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things they talk about here, it may not be in here, it might be in the other thing, but they talk about a traffic calming, here it is, a traffic calming study. So this notion of traffic calming, I think this fits right with it. Street reconfiguration and traffic calming, right there.
As well as school safety. I think school safety is
Yeah.
category in that.
Absolutely. No, that's a very, very, very interesting idea. Wow, that's great, guys. I like that idea. Yeah.
I thought I heard a while back about some project to extend sidewalks
Yes.
toward Big Y. Is that's the state project, right? Do you remember where that was from and to, Chris?
Sidewalk extension. No.
I recall they were doing a lot of surveying around Riverdale and all the way up toward Easthampton. So I thought they might be extending them from toward Easthampton somehow. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't think I've heard anything about that, certainly anytime recently, though.
I remember there was a grant fairly recently, but we missed there was no, we couldn't get it done before the deadline, and we were talking about maybe extending sidewalks through downtown, but I don't think we ever applied for it recently,
No.
right?
No, we didn't. No.
Well, any sidewalks on Route 10 should be administered through the state anyway. That's a state road.
Right. So that was,
what I'm thinking is if there are plans, you certainly have a more compelling case if you can connect sidewalks on Pomeroy Meadow, down to sidewalks on Route 10.
right.
And if you're coming, you have a compelling case, I would say, as well.
So taking a look, the one that had popped into my mind, and I just don't know how complicated it is two ends of it. So either the walk from the cemetery on down to Town Hall, or the section from Town Hall Church over to Conant Park, for example. So that's the shorter one and maybe the easier one. But I mean, they're incredibly narrow, strips right now, and I don't know to the extent they have to conform to some minimum width, then what that requires to access extra land along there, et cetera, and how complicated that is. So
Well,
any
the ones
thoughts
from
there?
Town Hall to Conant Park, they actually go a little further. They go to the Quickie Mart. Those were just redone 2-3 years ago. And so
Uh-huh.
they should comply with that was another state project. I believe that was another Safe Routes to School.
Okay.
So I would think that those do comply, even though it seems narrow.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there had to be a minimum width at all. I mean, you can get a bike down, but you can't really have
Two people, I mean, you can't have the passing width like you do in front of, on Palmer Meadow, right? You don't have the wheelchair width, right?
I would be surprised if it's not ADA compliant.
Yeah, well,
Very
not two wheelchair widths, I guess is what it wasn't. That the notion about the ones in front of Cumberland or along Palmer Meadow, they had to be able to pass. Two wheelchairs had to be able to pass, or something like
possible.
that.
Oh, you're talking about the Safe Routes from
Yeah,
Pomeroy.
I guess. Yeah.
That is just they keep increasing the pedestrian friendly nature of those accommodations. So
Yeah.
they wanted either 2 5-foot sidewalks, but because that project there were trees on one side of the road that they wanted to retain, they just moved both 5-foot sidewalks to one side, and we have a 10-foot sidewalk.
okay.
Personally, I think is overkill, but
I don't think they're called sidewalks though. Those are called multi-use lanes, correct?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they're intended for bicycles. They're intended for more than just walking.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So is the notion though, say from the cemetery down to Town Hall, that one hasn't been worked on at all, has it recently, or?
Negative, and I've been meaning to talk to the state about. I'm sure they have much poorer sidewalks, but that one's in pretty rough shape. I walk it fairly regularly, and it's pretty rough.
Yeah. I mean, is that something that I didn't know if you had other funds available to do something like that, or if something like this grant would be a possibility?
Well, I think again we'd have to push the state to do it since it's their road.
Okay. So it's nothing we can do ourselves then. Okay. So then timing wise and all that kind of bidding and so forth, I can't imagine anything getting done in 6 months' time. What do you think? I don't know.
I don't think so either, but I can certainly this reminds me that I want to reach out to somebody at the state to put a bug in their ear, and maybe I can ask some of these questions.
Okay. Any other things down and around Conant Park? And I guess I'm going to be going to the Parks Commission meeting next week, and maybe I'll throw some of this at them too, just for an idea. But
Wait, they have a meeting next week?
well, they're supposed to. They told me they have one because I needed to go and talk to them about pollinator gardens.
Oh, because I was trying to talk to them about the park grant or the land grant, and I was told that they didn't have a meeting yet. So
Well, I haven't seen it on the schedule, but I was told they have one. So maybe next Thursday. But But anyway, the one thing related to that was some things down and around other people have done around their libraries or, benches, public seating in certain areas. So I didn't know if there's any other thoughts. And again, it's hard to have like 2 or 3 little projects, I suppose. I guess you probably have to put in one application. I'd have to go back and look at this again. But anyway, this just seemed like an interesting idea that might be something fairly quick and simple. But so I've sent it, I think, to everybody. Ian, I probably didn't send it to you. Well, you've already got it, so okay. But I sent it to the grant committee folks here. So I don't know. What do you all think? Shall we just reach out and get a little bit more information and then plan on getting together maybe in a week or so to see if we can work on something like this? The timing is pretty tight in terms of putting it together, and I haven't seen yet the real application form. Again, we never really know what we're getting into until we see all the questions they might ask, but I'll do a little bit more digging.
From my perspective, I've got to follow up with a few people to try and get some great opportunity, possibly get some money. I don't mind making these phone calls.
Okay, that'd be great. I think that would be wonderful, Randall, if you could do that and take the lead on finding out some basic information, and then maybe we'll have enough to try to put it together next week and see where we go with that. Great. I think that's a great idea. I really do like that idea, because that pickup line at Norris is just crazy. It's just not a great place, especially with the use that Pomeroy Meadow gets now too, and plus everybody walking along the sidewalks. I mean, it's just a very busy street now. It never used to be, but now it definitely is, and to have the traffic there, and even though those, I don't know, people start lining up pretty early though. I mean, I think they're there, at least probably half an hour before school lets out, aren't they?
Seems like it's an hour early sometimes.
Yeah.
2:15 usually they start.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I think that's an interesting idea. Now, just a quickie, in terms of if we were to turn a street into a one-way street, is that something that we as the town have the ability to do? Or does that have to go to some higher authority?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that
I
question.
think we do. I believe we do.
Okay.
It's not a state road. The only thing, it does intersect with a state road, so I think that there might have to be some input from the Mass DOT.
Okay.
But
Does this have to go to the planning board by chance? On the planning board agenda, does it have to have a public hearing?
Probably a public hearing. I wouldn't be surprised. What do you guys think? I don't know.
I would
Probably.
What planning board regs do you think it would trip, Cindy?
I off the top of my head couldn't tell you, but I just note of late that when it's a public hearing kind of requirement, that generally falls to the planning board to hold the public hearing. So it would be a question I would at least ask. I could find out if such a, I mean, you definitely want to notify and allow people who reside on a street to be able to comment.
I would imagine we'd have a public hearing, but I was imagining that would take place at a select board meeting.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt, but I actually have a 2:15 meeting I have to hop up for, but I'll reach out to you, maybe Chris, later, so we can just touch base about minutes and other things.
All right, that sounds fine.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, so yeah, well, why don't
We can at least try to find out which one, yeah.
Yeah, let's find out what we need to do there. And again, something like this too, timing is kind of crazy on this, but if this had to go before town meeting, again, we've got one coming up in June, but articles for the warrant have got to be done, in early May, so.
Well, again, it's not the last town meeting we're going to have, and if we're moving something forward, I think it's time well spent. Even if we don't have the project ready to go by a town meeting, at least if we can get the traffic study underway, plans starting to be designed, because I'm sure we're going to have like the public meeting. I'm sure we're going to be a comment period. Like Ian suggested, the Mass DOT, we may have to get input from them. I
Right.
may have to, sometimes we have to apply for traffic controls.
Yeah.
We want to change speed zones. That has to go before Mass DOT.
Hmm. Okay.
So there may be input required.
Hmm. Okay.
But again, if we can move it forward, I think we're
Yep.
moving in the right direction, right?
Okay. No, that's fine with me. I think that's a good idea. I really do. Yeah. No, and true, we'd have another, probably a fall town meeting at some point in time. So,
I think with all the uncertainties I've witnessed, and you've been at more meetings than I have, Chris. I don't think there's any way we could get away with it just having one town meeting this year.
yeah, no, I doubt it. I doubt it as well.
A lot of moving pieces, and we've got that federal grant money coming
Right.
that we don't know what to do with yet. So,
Yep.
probably gonna
Exactly.
Yep. Reallocate monies when that comes in.
Exactly. So, good. All right. Well, that sounds like a plan. I think this is good. So we've got some little bit of homework to do, but I think this is one that we could try to tackle and see if we could put something on paper and get an application in. So again, I'll look around to see in their website wherever they've buried the real application form or how we have to apply on this and have that ready for our next meeting. Why don't before everybody has to leave, because I think we won't bother with minutes. We don't have a quorum at this point. So we'll hold off on those, and the park grant wasn't as urgent as these two things, so that can hold off until our next meeting. But I'm wondering if we could possibly schedule a meeting for as early as even next week, just to keep this momentum going here, because if we have to put something together, our timing is going to be a little tricky. A week from today would be the 5th. Does that seem okay to everybody? I have a 2 o'clock meeting on the 5th, but I could do it at a little bit different time.
Possible.
Yeah. Are you available, Diana? Yeah.
Yes, I am. Not
Okay.
that I'm that crucial.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could do probably, let's see, 2:30. I could probably do a 3 o'clock if that would work for anybody.
Works for me. It's on the calendar.
Yeah.
All right, let's try that. 3 o'clock then next Thursday on the 5th.
I
And
wanna-
Cindy?
I do
Yeah.
want, I want to bring up something before you adjourn.
Yep.
Regarding the Open Space Committee.
Uh-huh.
So I had an email quite late yesterday afternoon from Mark Wamsley from Kestrel. He surprised me with this email. He and I had been talking about possibly next year with the cooperation of Kestrel, working towards maybe a large kind of grant, like a landscape partnership grant. And that is such that we would have to draw together large parcels and
Right.
work in cooperation with other entities like other municipalities, et cetera. But he asked me this strange question: had we thought about trying to apply for a land grant with a smaller, trying to do an acquisition of a smaller property even this year? My answer to him was, whoa, I hadn't even thought about it, and let me get back to you. I am just letting this committee know that this has at least come up. There is one property that I don't know if it'll work, and I'm not even going to say what the property is right now, but there's a small possibility that they might be interested in talking to us about selling land.
Okay.
It is in chapter, and it would be the situation where if they did ever sell their land and made attempts to convert it to either residential or utilization other than in chapter, then the town would have the right of first refusal on it. So to sort of jump on this before all that happens, it works
Okay.
to our benefit, and it's a very attractive land. It's attached to other conservation land. So
Okay.
we'll just leave it all at this point, and I'll let you know more.
Okay.
But I know Diana wrote a lot of that land, all of the land grant previously, and I know she's really busy right now. So
Yep.
we're going to need some other support around that if we get
Sure.
to that.
Right. Okay. No, and I think we had that on our master list of possible grants, and we just hadn't picked it back up again to see when the deadlines are for
Deadline
that.
is July 21st.
Is it similar to
Yeah.
the park grant? I think those are right together. Okay.
And there are some workshops for it coming up.
Okay. All right.
Land grant, land and park grant workshop.
Yes, yeah. No, the park grant, I think it's got one up next week even. So, okay, good. Well, good to know, Cindy. Thank you for that. We'll add that to our list of possible things too. So great. So with that, I don't think there's any other agenda items for today. So if everybody's okay, I guess, Diana, you could make a motion to adjourn if you'd like.
That'll be my first.
Can I ask one
I
thing?
move that we adjourn this committee.
Before we
meeting.
adjourn, can I ask one
Yes.
thing?
Sure, go ahead, Ian. Sorry.
Okay, Diane. Do we have specific tasks that you want us, Randall or I, to do before the next meeting for this potential grant that we were discussing earlier? Should we
Yeah,
identify
well-
them? What would you like each of us to do?
Can I
Yeah.
jump in?
Yeah,
with
go
a-
ahead. Go ahead, Randall. Yep,
and
go
then
ahead.
Make sure. So I'm calling Paul Fergal and or the DPW in Westfield to talk about the sewers on the south side of town.
Right.
I'm also, Paul is the one I was going to talk to about my traffic study questions for Gun Road. And then I'm going to see if I can't reach out to the state regarding several things with sidewalks, both repairing the existing sidewalks from High Street to Town Hall. And then what would it take to get sidewalks in other locations, such as in front of the cemetery or further north from, I think the sidewalk currently ends at Park Place. And it would be great if they were extended. The further, the better. I think that's the key to making Southampton more walkable is we've got Pomeroy Meadow pretty good down to Glendale. And if we can start connecting streets in between there and get Route 10 done, you've got a pretty walkable section of town, which I'm telling you, I've seen people using. Anytime you put in a sidewalk, people are using it.
Yeah, definitely so.
I think if we can expand the existing network we have, it's
Mhm.
gonna be a better community. I
Yep.
know nobody likes sidewalks in front of their houses because you have to then plow them, but
Yeah.
this is socialism.
Well, so I think that, and I don't know in terms of, so Paul might be able to help us as to whether we had to do another survey, a traffic study, so that maybe would avoid further inquiry to the state on that part. The notion about turning it into a one-way street, maybe, Ian, that might be something you could take a look at. If we have some level of power to do that and what would be required, for example, a public hearing or some sort. Okay, that would be good, I think.
And I think probably the Norris School Administration should be aware of what we're looking at. Would this even be feasible for a pickup?
Yeah.
Location.
Okay.
I don't see
Yeah.
because you could just reverse direction. You're going to where they currently exit onto Gun Road would be the entrance, and where they enter from Pomeroy Meadow would now be the exit.
The only thing is they wouldn't be going behind the school, so they wouldn't be as close to the double doors that the kids are coming out now, that's all. They'd have to stay on the street.
No, I'm saying you could reverse. You know how they go behind the school now? Why couldn't you just reverse it and exit where they usually enter? You
Okay.
feel me?
Yeah.
Just drive in from the Gun Road Extension side, right on the back side of the school.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Or if you're saying you bring them out to the cars right on Gun Road, maybe that's a more elegant solution, and then you don't have to route them around the school.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe that's further down the design.
Yeah. Now, would you suggest that we invite the principal to join us?
I'm not sure. Maybe later down the line, if we start talking about it, that's up to you guys.
Let's
I've
wait.
always
let's
found
wait
Elisa
and see
to
what
be
we get
pretty-
back with what is even feasible at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get through one more meeting and then we'll open it out a little bit broader. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So with that in mind, I'll second the motion to adjourn, and I guess I'll vote yes. And Diana can vote yes.
Fetterman, yes.
All right, and Fowles aye. So we'll consider ourselves officially adjourned at this point in time.